Every time it seems like the dream is dead, we turn around the corner and see a new VR developer making another attempt at the VR MMO genre style of game. And today, we'll be discussing many of these games as we cover your monthly VR MMO news. Now first, I'd like to say sorry guys that I've been gone for a while. I've been dealing with a lot of things in my personal life, but we're going to move on from that and get right back into making content very soon. So thank you so much for sticking around and waiting for us to get back on track over here at Red Devil VR. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about all of this month's VR MMO monthly news. Today we will not be covering Oathbreakers, Orbis, or EverQuest VR, as there is not much news on these three titles as of right now that I can dig up for you guys. However, we will be discussing a little bit of Zenith VR news to catch some of you guys up. We will be talking about Ilysia VR and whatever happened to them, and the new VR MMO on the docket, which is Ascent Quest. And all of these games have some pretty big news, but there is only time to really cover one of them in depth, and that will be Ascent Quest. So real quickly, let's cover the VR MMO news with Zenith and Ilysia. So just to get this one out of the way, Zenith is officially dead, guys. If you haven't heard the news, they're basically going to be shutting down the servers for Zenith in a few months and moving on to make other projects. There is a whole video I made on this topic if you want to go check that out, but just to get most of you guys caught up, yeah, they're killing Zenith for good because they basically said they don't want to keep funding the game any further, and because they don't have a great payment model in order for them to keep running the game, or a great monetization model for them to keep going. And even though some people agree with this and some people disagree, either way, it doesn't seem like they really care since they turned off the comments on their I'm not even sure if it's like an apology video or what, but it's not great. But yeah, so they're definitely going to be shutting it down and not allowing people to even play it anymore, to my knowledge, other than the temporary amount of time they'll be leaving it up for people to play. They say they're going to be offering rewards and future games of theirs for your purchases in this one, which is not great if you don't want to buy their future games. Let me know what you guys think about this shutdown of Zenith in the comments below. Now, whatever happened to Ilysia VR? This is partially due to my fault for not covering it for a little while over the course of this summer, but Ilysia is still alive and well, guys. They are working on a lot of things, and honestly I haven't played a lot of Ilysia as of late, but I do plan on getting right back into it eventually, and I would love to hear what some of you guys are thinking about it who are currently playing it. Now last time I did play Ilysia, they did make some pretty solid updates to the way the game began, as the version I showed off a while ago, and honestly the version I have footage of, is very rough and not at all really representative of what the game looks like now. It looks much better, and I have faith that this team is going to at least bring us a functional MMO RPG. I think it's a bit bigger in what they're saying it's going to be than what they can probably put out. It's very possible it's too big, but I can't say that for sure. I'm just really hoping that we get a functional version of it because it looked absolutely amazing. Let me know what you guys think of Ilysia VR in the comments below, and if you want me to bring you more information on that throughout the month. We finally get to discuss the meat of the video, which is Ascent Quest, the new VR MMO RPG out there, being developed by Far World Studios, a French studio. So they do develop these YouTube videos, which I will link below, that give you some more information if you want it directly from the source. But our friend here does have a very heavy accent, so if it's very hard for you to understand what he's saying and you just want the quick tidbits, that's what I'll be adding in this video for you guys and throughout some of my other videos, while trying to enlighten you on how some of these systems work, because he is explaining it in a way that can be complicated for some people to understand. And if you're not one of those people, then great, but I'm trying to simplify this for everyone. So let's go ahead and check out what Ascent Quest has to offer us this month. So first off, they did develop a bunch of stuff on this game that we covered in our last video, and I'll be covering something very special in an upcoming video about Ascent Quest as well. So definitely subscribe if you want more information on this game in the future, as I will be continuing to cover it. But they released a video on their boss and melee kind of style and combat. So today we'll be discussing how the bosses seem to be working, how the combat seems to be working. I will enlighten you guys to a bit of what this stuff is, because I have been kind of digging into the research of this game and what this guy's doing with his studio. So we're going to definitely check out the combat. We're going to check out some of how this game is meant to work in this particular area, as we haven't dug into it too much before, other than knowing that it's going to be a physics-based combat. So in the preview of the video, he gives us a basically preview of what the story boss, the first story boss, will be, and this is going to be a type of tutorial character to teach you how to fight bosses. And all of the characters in this game, or all the enemies, will have different melee style weapons, and this will give them different attack patterns, ranges, etc. And this is a physics-based combat system, and although right now it looks a little bit slow, it does look like it's hitting the right beats, as a lot of players out there in the VR MMO RPG community have been begging for a physics-based combat system in their game, which this one definitely has. Now overall, before we dig too much into that, I want to say that this game's music, story, and presentation is absolutely epic. And even though the graphics might not be 100% perfect so far or yet, they still look great, as this game is in a testing phase and it already looks pretty good. That being said, they also have really good voice acting and music in this game, set to a very good tone, so I definitely think the theming is on point. I think they can do no better in that area so far, and they're heading in the right direction. Now let's talk a bit more about the combat and what they're discussing in this video. So this boss that you're facing is called the Foreman, and as I've discussed before, he is the tutorial boss, and what he's supposed to be teaching you is how to anticipate movement in battle, as there's a lot of physics-based combat in this game, and the creator of the game wants you to dodge and look out for what your opponent's going to do. They are doing kind of the highlighted damage areas that you see in some MMORPGs, so that you know to move out of the way beforehand, but in the hand-to-hand or up-close combat with sword-to-sword kind of style combat, you actually have to look at what your opponent's doing. They do kind of have a little bit of a tell, or a telegraph if you're familiar with that term, where they're kind of revealing what they're about to do, and you can learn the abilities of the enemies or the fighting styles of the enemies and be able to dodge and attack, in a proper manner to counter them. Now this does include parrying and blocking, and what this means is that the character with the shield can actually parry or block for other players because it can absorb damage. So what he's talking about in this video as well, which kind of gets me very excited, is the teamwork aspect of this tactic, which basically means you can have a mage, because there are mages in this game, shooting a fireball behind, and then you can have a tank blocking for that mage, which is a tactic he's actually discussing in this game. I'm actually really excited to see the creator of the game thinking about this kind of dynamic for the game, because it's what I think we were missing from things like Orbis and Zenith and all these other VR MMO RPGs. And I just think this is a great way to think about it, because this is how we're going to be playing the game. We're going to be trying to find ways to teamwork and cheat the system a little bit. So this is definitely one of the good ideas I think he's got for this one. And we'll talk about the stats as well as we move on here. So there are 3 main stats in the game for every character, and now each character falls under a basic kind of class when you start the game. Even though we're not calling them classes, he's going to call them specializations. So you start with one and you kind of move out on this tree branch of skills as you move on, and you can acquire skills from multiple specializations. So he's got like a pyromancer who controls fire, he's got a swordsman who's good with the sword, and so on, and then you can mix them, so you have a pyromancer who lights his sword on fire and that kind of thing. So now you have a fire spell blade kind of guy, and each of these particular categories start with a different stat, and that stat is one of the 3 following. That is strength, agility, and ether. Strength clearly affects how strong your character is in the game and how good they are with these melee weapons. Agility is for things like the bow, and I'm assuming daggers in the future. And Ether, of course, affects your magic ability. Now, we do have two secondary stat points that are not completely dictated by your class or your specialization, if you want to still call it that, and that's the stamina and vitality stats. Those are dependent on different factors in the game. And while this is a very brief overview of the combat system for this game, it does make me think. I'm really excited to try it out. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below about Ascent Quest and what you would change, what things you're excited to see from Far World Studios in the future. If this video was helpful to you guys or informative, please drop a like, as it would really help us out in the algorithm. We're trying to get the channel kicked back up, so all the likes will definitely help us out. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.